Hello, this is Randle in Texas.
And I'm Matt in Michigan. Today we're talking about an upcoming show on CBS All Access, Star Trek Picard. Randall, you're a big Star Trek fan. Are you excited for Star Trek Picard?
Mostly.
Mostly.
I'm pretty excited for it. I'm super stoked to see Patrick Stewart back in this role. I am I'm just so hopeful, and I hope that that's not misplaced because I've seen Discovery, and I have an interesting relationship with it, and it's not exactly the same showrunners, but Roberto Orci is still in charge of Star Trek as a whole. So I'm a little bit worried, and I've seen the trailers too for Picard, and that worries me just a little sometimes. But all in all, yes, I'm excited.
So me, I like Star Trek. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest Star Trek fan. So I've seen, the movies, all the Star Trek movies. I haven't watched some of the new shows like Discovery and stuff too. But I'm a big fan of the Next Generation. And me personally, I that's what I grew up Star Trek with, the Next Generation, as opposed to, the original series cast. So seeing Picard again, I'm excited for it. I'm excited that we're not doing prequel stuff, kind of thing. We're not we're not redoing the original Star Trek cast again. We're not doing, pre-Kirk, crew and stuff too. We're kind of like advancing the story.
Yeah, with the Kelvin verse stuff and the JJ movies from 2009 onward, it wasn't exactly, it was a reboot of the franchise in a sense, but it wasn't really a reboot of the characters because they're this offshoot universe. Um, but I'll let you know, you're talking about like pre-Kirk. In my opinion, and this could divide lots of people, I'm not trying to be divisive. I really enjoyed most of season two of Discovery. I really enjoyed Captain Pike in season two of Discovery. I liked his character. I liked the way that Anson Mount performed that character, and that was fine. But I agree in general. Move the story forward. I liked Enterprise from a certain perspective. There's parts about it that I didn't like, but I would have preferred to see something moving the story forward after Voyager, not just, all right, we're going to go back and explore this time that we haven't seen in Star Trek lore. Um, if we were going to do a Discovery video, I would tell you that right from the get-go, they should have put Discovery in the 25th or 26th century. And then they could have had the spore drive be the next evolution past warp drive that they experiment with. It would have fit so much better there. So I'm happy that in season 3 they're moving Discovery. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. They're moving Discovery towards the future instead of it just being a prequel. And with Picard, I'm super happy that it is moving the story forward in some capacity.
So Randall, for someone that hasn't seen the trailers or anything for Picard, not that I haven't, but for people maybe watching this that haven't or haven't read up on it, what is going to be, from what you can tell, the premise for Picard?
They've hinted at this time and time again that basically Picard's no longer in Starfleet. He had a falling out with Starfleet, it looks like. It seems as though the way that Starfleet is going post Nemesis and post Dominion War from DS9, they're getting much more militaristic. They're getting much further away from the founding of the Federation, and that he's done with that. And it's interesting when you watch the trailers, especially the most recent trailer where even Will Riker is no longer in Starfleet. And you're like, well, it's really early for him to have retired. So I imagine that even his character in this timeline with Marina Sirtis's Deanna Troi living outside of Starfleet also had that same, I can't get beyond what Starfleet's doing right now, and I have to retire in protest, basically.
And it looks like a lot of new characters and stuff in this show, but we also have, some Star Trek characters that are, pretty well known. You mentioned one, Deanna Troi. Who are some of the other, Star Trek characters we're gonna see in this show?
So obviously the biggest reveal, everyone kind of knew that Jonathan Frakes was going to reprise his role as Will Riker. The big reveal was that Brent Spiner's coming back to play Data, and they're pretty clear about the fact that he is playing Data.
Yeah, man, did Data die in Nemesis? I mean, how are they bringing back Data?
So some people might speculate, and they would not be too far off, that in Nemesis, hey, we transferred all of Data's memories to B4, the kind of primordial android of Dr. Soon's. But from what we've been told, he is not playing B4. He is playing Data. Whether it's in some dream sequences or flashbacks, he is supposed to be playing Data. And that's interesting. I'm kind of really want to see where they take that. Hopefully it doesn't override the fact that this is a show about Picard in his twilight years, though. I don't want it to be just nostalgia. I'm not dismissing nostalgia as a selling point. Lots of people are only going to watch this because it's Picard. Because it's Patrick Stewart in this iconic role. But I hope that it doesn't get stuck there. I want to see what his character's doing moving forward.
I'm kind of interested to see too, because like you're saying, you don't want to just be nostalgia. I mean, I think even if you aren't a big Star Trek fan, you know who Captain Picard is. I mean, you certainly know who Patrick Stewart is. But I'm really interested to see is this gonna be a good show for new fans of Star Trek? To bring like new people into it. Someone who doesn't know, about the next generation crew and stuff. Is this going to be a show that they are going to enjoy?
I don't know, because I haven't seen it.
Obviously. Yeah, we won't know for sure until it comes out.
But I don't think so. I think that they want Discovery to be that show, that gateway for new fans, not so much Picard. I think they're making Picard to try and appeal to fans like me who think, oh man, you guys made some stupid decisions with Discovery, and I just want something that's more in line with what I know. Whether or not that's what we're gonna get, probably not. I'm trying to be a skeptical and hopeful at the same time. I don't think though that Picard is that show that is going to bring in a whole bunch of new viewers. I think that they want baby boomers, Gen Xers, and older millennials like us who remember TNG fondly to subscribe to CBS All Access and watch Picard.
See, I don't know exactly when they announced that Picard was going to be a thing, but do you think this show is kind of in reaction to some of the backlash maybe that CBS had with the first season of Discovery?
Probably, yeah. But hopefully it's a reaction in a good way. Even in Discovery Season 2, you start seeing them correct. Even if you don't like how they corrected, you do start seeing them do some course correction for, probably a bad idea to have Klingons without hair. Probably a bad idea to have holographic communication when it's referenced in Deep Space Nine that the holographic communication in the 24th century is brand new across these vast distances. That's fine. So even in Discovery Season 2, they're course correcting. So I wouldn't be surprised that CBS is seeing the reaction to Season 1 Star Trek and saying, let's try and correct this a little bit.
So what about the fans that maybe, like Star Trek but haven't watched Star Trek in a while? What do you think people should watch before they see Picard?
That's a thing that's pretty important when you're talking about shows like Star Trek Picard that have this really long history, that's kind of a starting point for people. It's not going to be. You need to know some other things going in unless the storytelling is really deft. You're going to want to watch The Best of Both Worlds. Basically, any interaction with Picard and the Borg is probably a pretty to-watch thing. Like, if you go back and watch TNG, you want to watch anything that has to do with Picard and the Borg. Jerry Ryan's in this. She's reprising her role from Star Trek Voyager as Seven of Nine, but it's hard to say what the scope of her character is. So, and she's a main character in Voyager starting like season 4 and beyond. So it's hard to say, go watch XYZ Voyager episodes. But Voyager deals a lot with the Borg in the later seasons, so that might be relevant. Watch First Contact, which is a TNG movie with the TNG crew and the Borg, and absolutely watch Star Trek Nemesis. I would say you can probably skip Insurrection, although I enjoy the movie myself. I don't think that it's going to be referenced. I don't think it's going to be that important in the storyline of Picard. And I know that Nemesis is. I know that where they leave off with Nemesis, with the budding relationship between Picard and the Romulans, is going to be important. And I know that it all ties back into the 2009 movie with Spock trying to save Romulus. So probably a good idea to watch at least the J.J. Kelvin-verse 2009 Star Trek movie. Those are your best bets for getting into what's important, probably.
So this show, as we're all hoping, is going to have a lot of new elements and stuff in Star Trek. What have you heard about some of the new characters that are going to be in the show?
Not very much. They're being pretty... They gave like character descriptions for each of them, but they're being pretty tight-lipped and keeping it close to the chest for what these new characters are, other than, we know that Picard is no longer in Starfleet. We know that he goes to Starfleet asking for help and is basically turned down. You see that in the trailer. That's not even a spoiler unless you haven't seen the trailer. As far as the other characters are concerned, they haven't given you that much. You're going to get a doctor. There's going to be a Romulan that's part of his crew, his kind of thrown together ragtag crew. You don't even know what kind of ship they're going to be using. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I hope to see the Enterprise E in this. It might be long in the tooth at this point, but unless it meant an untimely demise, it's only about 20 years old, and if you look at the lifespan of the original 1701, it was an old ship. They have a history of lasting for a long time, and even the Excelsior class ships right back there, you see them in the 23rd century, and they are just throughout the entire Dominion War. So unless the Enterprise E met a very untimely demise, which could happen, I want to see that as well.
I'm trying to think what else I would want to see in this one, too.
Well, as someone who's not as big into Star Trek as I am, what are you hoping out of Picard? What do you want to see out of it?
So I'm interested to see, where Picard is at. I mean, he's retired and stuff, so you can't say he's would be having like a midlife crisis or something. But what is it that's bringing him back into the fold and stuff? He's retiring at the vineyard or whatever. I mean, I don't know that anyone really wants to see a movie just about Farmer Picard. But yeah,
I'd watch it.
Would you watch? You'd watch Farmer
Well,
Picard?
okay. There's a fantastic storyline post The Best of Both Worlds, where Picard comes back to the family vineyard and basically, talks with his brother, who's gone. His brother dies in a fire. His whole family dies in a fire. So like Picard's the last Picard, and he knows that. So actually, watching a story about old man Picard coming to grips with he's the last Picard and he's just trying to keep up the family vineyard. He's done with his Starfleet career. That if that was a psychological tale of just Picard being old, kind of like Old Man Logan, I would have watched it. I would definitely watch it. But I understand that those aren't the fans. That's not the market they're going for. They're not going to make that kind of movie. They're not going to make that kind of show.
I'll be honest with you. The name has got me in. I mean, Picard. I mean, that's getting me at least in the door. I want to see something new with Picard. Whether I stay will depend on, the quality of the show. The other, new elements, that's what I said. I want to, will I care about these new characters? I mean, that is going to be a big determining factor if I'm going to stay, watching the show. But, I mean, it's Picard. I mean, I think that's all I can say. That's what has me in the door watching the show.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you say, will I care about these new characters? In old Star Trek, because it was so episodic, with the exception of some DS9 stuff, but even in DS9, it was super rare to see a character killed off. So if you ever put a character in peril, you were pretty sure they were getting out of it. So will I care about these characters, and really are they dispensable characters, becomes important. Because one of the things about Star Trek Discovery, one of the biggest criticisms is, well, Burnham's not a very likable character. And she's the main character. That gets a little better in season 2, but it's still fairly similar. And you start seeing these characters, okay, well, hero syndrome, they can't die. I need to see characters in modern television that I care about. Game of Thrones was very good with this in the first 4 to 5 seasons. Characters that I care about who are not invincible.
I think that's too with having it, in the further in the future. Granted, all Star Trek is in the future for the most part, unless they're traveling back in time or
unless the
something
Ferengi
like
are the 1947 DS9 classic episode.
But that's one of the things, like you're saying, like the stakes and stuff. When you go back, doing prequels and stuff, it takes some of that tension. You're like, oh well, they're not gonna kill off this character, or they can't kill off this character, and that's the thing too. I mean, I can't imagine them killing off Picard, since the show is Star Trek Picard. I can't imagine that the whole rest of the show would be, Picard's legacy.
Sans Picard, yes.
Sans Picard kind of thing. But yes, I mean, I agree. I hope, we have some of those stakes or whatever, where our heroes actually do have some, vulnerability or whatever to them. Not the invincible heroes.
One thing that I definitely wanted to ask you, not so much as Star Trek, but in the culture of where Star Trek sits in culture, what do you think modern Star Trek should be? You're not as nerdy into it as I am. What makes a modern Star Trek for you?
For Star Trek, a lot of it is the crew. You see a crew working together, not just one character. I think a lot of times with Star Trek, they have characters that everyone, I think, can relate to one of the characters, but you enjoy, the crew as a whole, as that team kind of thing.
From my perspective, one of the things that the best Star Trek is always working on social commentary. Yes, it takes place in the future, but that doesn't mean that what's going on now isn't relevant. In old Star Trek, the Klingon Empire, TOS and through the movies, that's the Federation is the United States and the Klingon Empire is the USSR. It's the Cold War. And then when the Cold War comes down, boom, you get the Undiscovered Country, which is one of the best Star Trek movies. It's a great movie. It's this eminent thing that happens, and that's the fall of the Berlin Wall almost. It's the Empire's not down and out, and they're not on their last legs, but here's a moment where we can make peace. It's relevant. When you watch Deep Space Nine does it the best. I'm just going to go out there and say it. Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek series. I love TNG, but Deep Space Nine works so much better for me because I watch it now, even today, 20 plus years later, and the storylines they're telling are still relevant. They're talking about racism, basically, although in Star Trek it's speciesism, because there's different species. They're talking about wars. They're talking about the psychological problems with wars. It's still relevant today. That's what makes the best Star Trek. Star Trek is at its best when it resonates with what's happening in culture, in my opinion.
Yep, I would agree. I would agree with that. Even going back and watching, the TNG and stuff, and seeing, like you said, different things come up that at the time were, modern conflicts or, things that may have been, I wouldn't say like taboo, but, things that, that kind of, broaden people's scope on different issues.
All in all, my predictions and hope for Star Trek Picard, I predict that it will be bigger and better than Discovery, in all honesty. But I hope that it has some of the tonality of TNG mixed in, so that we get more relevant, better written episodes than we're getting with Discovery.
Well, we want to know what you think. Are you excited for Star Trek Picard? What do you want to see? Do you have some concerns? Be sure to share those with us in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We're going to have lots more videos coming out shortly. I'm Matt from Michigan.
And I'm Randall from Texas. Bye.